So, DJI have released their latest drone, the DJI Air 2S, and all the comparisons have naturally been against its predecessor, the DJI Mavic Air 2. But I think the comparison people should be thinking about is against the DJI Mavic 2 Pro, the current flagship of the DJI consumer drone lineup. Well, I think the king's reign has come to an end, and in this video I'll tell you why, so don't go away. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel where we review tech related to making YouTube videos and other gear rumors and breaking news just like this one. So if you're liking this content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. And by the way, some time codes are in the description below if you just want to jump straight to the comparison. Or if you stick around until the end, I'll explain why the release of the new DJI Air 2S will mean the DJI Mavic 2 Pro will be knocked off its perch as the flagship DJI drone. But not by the Air 2S. By something else completely new. So, the brand spanking new DJI Air 2S has hit the shelves barely a year after its predecessor, the DJI Mavic Air 2. Now these drones are certainly coming out thick and fast at the moment. Even my old friend Peter McKinnon said,
I'm a little tired of new drones. New drones. Smaller. More drones. Faster drone. FPV drone. Drone.
Okay, he's not an old friend. And I don't know him. I know of him. I mean, I've watched a lot of his videos, right? From way back from when he wasn't the YouTube mega brand he is today. So like, I feel like I know him as a friend. Anyway, it's a lot of drones, right?
And.
See, I'm even starting to sound like him. So, with the new Air 2S, it is very natural for people to be making comparisons between the Air 2S and its predecessor, the Mavic Air 2. But as I said, in my opinion, the drone that people should be comparing it to is the Mavic 2 Pro. The Mavic 2 Pro is, in theory, DJI's flagship drone, and yet there are a number of features in the new Air 2S that are way better than the Mavic 2 Pro. So hang around until the end of the video and I'll cover off why this is the case. So, how does the Air 2S stack up against the Mavic 2 Pro? And if you're a Mavic 2 Pro owner or thinking of getting one, what should you do? So that's what we're going to cover in this video. And he goes again. I've spent far too long getting to finally do the comparison, so let's get into it. And first up is the sensor size. Now both have the 1-inch 20 megapixel sensor, but the Hasselblad in the Mavic 2 Pro camera is supposed to offer a superior image through better color accuracy and dynamic range. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so I don't know if that carries any water and if it's a showstopper or not for you. I kind of feel like it's not. Next, the resolution and frame rates are better in the Air 2S, with the new drone able to capture video at up to 5.4K at 30 frames per second and 4K at 60 frames a second. Now the Mavic 2 Pro tops out at 4K at 30 frames a second, and the maximum bitrate has also taken a leap, up to 150 megabits per second on the Air 2S versus 100 megabits per second on the Mavic 2 Pro. The maximum photo resolution is the same at 20 megapixels. The form factor of the Air 2S is also smaller and lighter, weighing in at 595 grams versus the 907 grams of the Mavic 2 Pro, and smaller as well. I won't bore you with the exact dimensions, so it's just easy to show them on screen. So far, the 2S delivers better shooting capability and it's smaller and more convenient to take with you. Plus, it's cheaper too. The Fly More combo for the Air 2S, and I always recommend getting the Fly More combo when you buy any of the DJI drones, currently comes in at $1,299 US versus the Mavic 2 Pro with the Fly More kit, which stings you for around $1,998 US. And just as an aside, the Air 2S Fly More combo kit also includes a nifty set of ND filters, which is a very nice addition to the kit. However, I don't think this is just DJI doing something nice for consumers. I think it's because they've taken something away, and I'll come to that soon. So to recap so far, the Air 2S has better video resolution, it's smaller, lighter, cheaper. Hang on a sec, that reminds me of the $6 Million Man.
Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
Sorry about that. Showing my age now. Anyway, as I was saying, the Air 2S has better video resolution, it's smaller, lighter, cheaper than the flagship Mavic 2 Pro. Okay, let's tilt the playing field back a little bit the other way and talk about a couple of things the Mavic 2 Pro has that the Air 2 hasn't. First of all, and it's back to the camera lens, the Air 2S has a fixed aperture of f2.8, whereas the Mavic 2 Pro has an adjustable aperture that ranges from f2.8 to f11, which means you can adjust the exposure without having to alter the shutter speed. Now this is an advantage on sunny days with no ND filters and when you're trying not to bump up the shutter speed. And this is exactly why I think DJI put a set of ND filters in with the Air 2S, kind of a peace offering of sorts, to make up for a lack of an adjustable aperture. I may be wrong, but hey, tell me what you think in the comments section below. Also with the lens, the focal length has changed a little bit too. I can't say it's better or worse, as a lot of this is personal preference, but the lens on the Mavic 2 Pro has an effective focal length of 28mm, and with the Air 2S it's slightly wider at 22mm, which is great for landscapes and capturing more of the action. Optical avoidance sensors are another area these drones differ as well, and there's a bit of a trade-off, to be honest with you. Whilst many people are focused on the fact that the Air 2S has an additional set of sensors, the top ones, versus the Mavic Air 2, so the front, back, top and bottom are now covered, the Mavic 2 Pro does not have sensors on the top of the drone, but it does have them on the side. Now these can come in handy, particularly when doing orbit maneuvers, but probably not a showstopper overall. Now, if you live in or fly your drone in more extreme conditions, the Mavic 2 Pro has a slight edge there too, being able to operate down to -10°C, whereas the Air 2S can only go down to 0°. Again, is this a big deal for you? Maybe, maybe not. The batteries are obviously different because the size and shape of the drones are different, but the result is that the flight time is around the same at 30 to 31 minutes in ideal conditions. Okay, so that round to the Mavic 2 Pro, but the Air 2S is probably still ahead on points at this stage, and speaking of points, here are a few more. Both drones have the OcuSync transmission system, however the Air 2S gets the new OcuSync 3.0 version, or 03 as it's known, as recently released in the DJI FPV drone, giving it a slightly extended range of 12 km versus the 10 km OcuSync 2.0 system used by the Mavic 2 Pro. There's a new mode called Master Shots, which is essentially the next evolution of Quick Shots, where you select your subject and the drone will then automatically execute and record 10 different maneuvers in sequence, keeping your subject center frame and then generating a short cinematic video afterwards. The Air 2S also has a few more bells and whistles in terms of functionality. Kind of. They've updated Active Track to Active Track 4.0 and added Spotlight 2.0 and Point of Interest 3.0, all various ways of making it super easy for the Air 2S to follow or circle yourself or your subject, including moving objects like cars and people, where the drone will autonomously fly itself, keeping a safe distance and capturing shots that would be extremely hard or even impossible to do manually. However, the Mavic 2 Pro has the older but still very capable versions of Active Track, Spotlight and Point of Interest, but also has the tap fly and waypoints capability. With the Air 2S, DJI have added AirSense technology, which is an ADS-B feature that can detect other nearby airplanes, helicopters and drones that are also ADS-B capable. The Mavic Air 2 was the first DJI consumer drone equipped with AirSense technology, but only in some countries. But it looks like it's going to be included in the majority of new drones going forward, which is a great feature. However, because the Mavic 2 Pro is a little bit older, it doesn't have this function. So the question is, why did DJI release a newer, cheaper drone that spec-wise pretty much kills its current flagship consumer drone, the Mavic 2 Pro? And how did we end up in this situation? Well, the simple fact is that DJI have been putting so much effort into upgrading the Mini and the Air models over recent years that they've kind of taken their eye off the ball from their top end. And some of their competitors, you could argue, have stolen the high ground from them. The Autel Evo 2, for example, that was released at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in 2020, is arguably already a better drone than the Mavic 2 Pro. So what does this all mean? Well, the answer is, of course, it means that an update to the Mavic 2 Pro, in other words, bringing out a new flagship, the Mavic 3, is not far away. But the details on that is for another video coming soon. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that video. Now bear in mind, the Mavic 2 Pro hasn't suddenly become a bad drone. It's still a very, very capable device. But what do you do if you just bought one or already have one? Well, I guess you've got a couple of options. You could just stick with it for now. After all, it's still an amazing drone. You could sell it and get the Air 2S, or you could wait until the Mavic 3 comes out and upgrade to that one. Now, will it be worth upgrading, I hear you ask, given the Air 2S has come out with a bunch of already amazing features? Well, I reckon, yep. It will be, especially if you absolutely must have the biggest, brightest and best drone on the market. And the reason I say that is because, yes, DJI have added a lot of features into the Air 2S, but they've still left some wiggle room for the Mavic 3, and I'll cover that in another video. Okay, so that's all well and good regarding the Air 2S versus the upper end of the spectrum in terms of the Mavic 2 Pro, but what if you already have a Mavic Air 2 or were thinking of getting one? Or even if you have a Mini 2 and were thinking of moving up in the drone world? Well, I've made a video that focuses in on the main differences between the DJI Air 2S and the Mavic Air 2 and whether you should upgrade. And also the differences between the Air 2S and the Mini 2. So check them out now. Based on the feedback I've already had on those two videos, they will definitely help you make up your mind. Cheers guys.